Welcome to the Rent Roll Starter podcast. Today we have a very special guest joining us on the podcast, Ashleigh Goodchild from Soco Realty in Perth. Now, Soco Realty was founded by Ashleigh Goodchild and her business partner in 2006 and has grown exponentially ever since then. But also, Ashleigh is also the founder of the PM Collective, which you might already know from her podcast, or you might know the PM Collective as the amazing membership for property managers that is all about collaboration, not competition, and inspiring human connection through events and podcasts. So if you haven't already met Ashleigh, then today's interview is going to be a treat. Now, Ashleigh Goodchild is someone I have wanted to sit down and pick her brain to find out more about how she manages to have such an amazing team culture and how she seems to manage amazing staff retention even in the property management industry. So in today's episode, Ashleigh is going to step us through exactly how she does it. So let's jump into the episode now. Welcome, Ashleigh. Thank you so much for being here on today's podcast. I want to start by asking you about your staff lunches, because you do something that's a little bit different to everybody else when it comes to staff lunches. You don't just buy a plate of sandwiches from the cafe down the road. Tell us what you do with your staff lunches.
So we're big foodies, and a few years ago we started every afternoon having cheese boards, and that's just what we did, and we all took it in turns to go and make a cheese board. And fortunately for us, we work opposite Coles, so it's nice and easy for us to quickly run over, grab some stuff. And we decided that at the end of the day, we all need to eat lunch, and we are all out on the street, on the cafe strip, all buying $15 sandwiches. So we thought, why don't we start doing it together a little bit more? And we now do Soup Kitchen Mondays. So Soup Kitchen Mondays are really exciting because people can cook it on a Sunday and also take that time like to relax with cooking, and if they find it relaxing. And it's nice to share a meal and to also showcase different skills that people have got in the office. So Soup Kitchen Mondays are so exciting because we have lots of different styles. We had red lentil and pumpkin soup, which has been my favorite, which our trust accountant did, which was just beautiful. And we sometimes have you heard of mulligatawny?
No, I haven't. What is that?
No. Oh, actually, you'd like it because you're vegetarian, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so mulligatawny is an Indian rice soup. And it's, I think Bill, my business partner, said to me, it was a soup that was created when people in India didn't have a lot of money and they needed to just make a very nutritious meal and very cheap meal as well to feed the family. And that's what mulligatawny is. So it's so nice because it's like a story, you know what I mean, where these soups came from or why we've made them. So long story, but Soup Kitchen Monday is our favourite. But do you know what? Like, it's just ended up being more than that. So I think the other week we had soup on Monday. We had chicken cacciatore on Tuesday because one of the girls won a meat pack at the local pub on the weekend. So she had this meat she wanted to cook. And then Wednesday she had pizza bases, and everyone was like, oh, we've all got stuff in our fridge to use up. So we all just brought in our bits and pieces from the fridge and made pizzas for lunch. And then we just had to buy lunch ourselves on Thursday. And it's just nice and relaxing and enjoyable to share food together.
I love that, Ash. And I saw the photos of your pizzas the other day and they looked delicious. So delicious. And I have scribbled down Indian rice soup because I have no idea how to spell the name of the soup that you just mentioned, but I'm going to go search for it because I love Indian foods and this sounds like the type of soup I would love. So thank you.
It's beautiful. And I'm glad you didn't ask me how to spell it because I would have no idea either.
It'll come up on Google when I do the search. For sure. So the big reason I wanted to talk to you on the podcast today is because of the way you have created the most amazing culture in your business. And I think the fact that you cooked 3 out of 5 or 3 out of 4 meals together last week says an awful lot about your culture. But I wanted to get you to take us all the way back and tell us the Soco story. Like, how did you start this business? What prompted you to start it? Just give us the story of how you began.
Yeah, so I started property management when I was out of school, so about 18, and worked for a number of offices and had a great property management life. And I was working for someone who was really hard to deal with. He was a sales-led director, and I find sales-led directors quite difficult. And I was working for him. My business partner, who's also my brother-in-law, he was working for a company. He was director of another company where he was not happy with the values that office was bringing. So together, it was just the right timing that together we went, you know what, let's just start an office. And we started as Mackenzie Ivanhoe Realtors, which were our names. And we always had this rule that if we didn't both agree on something, then we didn't do it. And as time went on, we started sort of wanting the business to go in different directions. So knew that we had to bring in a third person, which was a business consultant. And the business consultant was our third wheel. So when we had decisions to make, he would tell us which way to go with. And that was the first step to him sort of saying, you need to change your name into a 4-letter word. So that's where Soco comes from. And it's very much a family and community-driven business. We're in business because we have families. We want to be there for the families and have the flexibility. So it was always a lifestyle choice and always driven by that more than money or business or anything else. So, and we are here 17 years later and still together and have a thriving business, which is great.
And so I have to ask, what does Soco mean or stand for?
So it started off being South Perth Como, which is our area. And we were told by the business consultant to be very exclusive with our areas. And South Perth, Como and Kensington are 3 suburbs in Perth. And I'll be honest, it was very, very difficult to commit to 3 suburbs only and to say no to everything else. I did it pretty well in property management. Sales was a little bit of a harder story. And to be honest, as time went on, that sort of faded away and we do business everywhere now. But that was the original idea.
Oh, cool. I like it. And I agree, it can be really hard. I know that for me, I found it really difficult to say no to any business, especially in the early days. I was willing to drive however far in order to sign a management authority.
Absolutely.
So you are quite unique in our industry when it comes to staff retention. You've had staff take long service leave, you've had staff leave and then come back to you. Tell us about your team and about how long they've been with you.
So I say that I've been lucky. People tell me to stop using that word, to say, Ash, it's not lucky. There's you're doing something right. So as I said to you, I love chatting about it because it allows me to self-reflect on what I'm doing, because I lead so much more from the heart than the head. So talking about it makes me think about what am I actually doing and why is it working? So I have had about 3 staff go on long service leave. I've had staff, 2 staff that have gone and come back again. I have always made room for people to come back if they need to. So staff that have been in situations with other employment where they've needed to leave but been a bit stuck, we've just said, come back, we'll sort out something for you. I've had 2 staff who have started their own real estate businesses and I've kept them with me until they were better established to be able to go out full time on the businesses. That's never scared me. And I think I've just had a lot of trust in people. I'm very trusting and I trust that people do the right thing by me, and they always have. And I've been fortunate that by being trusting, I get a lot more out of people as well.
You've just said something that's probably going to knock the socks off most of our listeners, that you've continued to employ people who have gone out on their own, starting their own rent roll, effectively in competition with you, and you've retained them as staff. That's unheard of in our industry. Can you talk a little bit more about how
Yeah,
you
I'll tell you the reason why I've always had this mentality. When I left my last role where I was employed, I had a lot of business follow. Well, when I say a lot, there was 10 people I think that followed, and at the time that was considered quite a bit. And I remember, like, I absolutely never poached or anything like that. And I remember one of the clients that followed me called me up, and he said, Ash, he goes, the old boss is calling me up. I've never spoken to him once in the whole 10 years that I've had the property under that agency, and all of a sudden now he wants to speak to me and now wants to create that relationship. And so I've always had that opinion that it's my responsibility as the business owner to retain clients. And if a client goes with another staff member, then I haven't done a good enough job in keeping that relationship up as the business owner. So that's what I've got a lot of trust in myself that I maintain those relationships, so that if my staff were to leave, I am not worried if a client was to go. And if a client did go, that's because of my lack of relationship building, and the property manager's just done a really good job. So a better job than me. There was, with one of my last employees, there was one client that did go out of a whole portfolio, and absolutely, she spent so much time in renovating his apartment over 6 months. She deserved to take that. She did a lot of work for him, and I absolutely would never hold that against her. And I just feel that as a business owner, that's the responsibility we've got for retention. So, and instead we're quick to blame staff who maybe not take clients, that's the wrong way to say it, but clients that follow staff. We shouldn't be worried about it if we are doing the right thing as a business owner.
Goodness me, that's powerful. Like, in terms of owning your responsibility as the owner of the business. That's incredible. But I would imagine it's so different to what so many of us have experienced when we left our jobs and started our own agencies. Most of us experienced threats from our boss, threats to our clients, and there was certainly no opportunity for us to continue working in the role we were in when we decided to start our own business. So that's just breathtaking. So talk to me then about, given that you've had, I think you said 3 people take long service leave, you've had people leave and come back. What do you do to keep your team so happy there?
I don't know, because I feel like I'm one of those really unorthodox managers. I see other officers that do it so well, and I'm envious, and I see them buy their staff flowers on their birthdays and flowers on their anniversary, and these beautiful welcome packs when they start, at the agency. And like, I'm very envious of managers that do that. And I don't do it because I'm mean or because I don't care. It's just not something that is natural for me to do, to buy gifts. I guess it comes down to the 7 love languages, and I am not that type of person. So I guess they probably never had that type of attention from the start. But it is very true. I think we attract people that are like us and maybe have the same love languages. So maybe I have got that right when employing very unconsciously. And I have staff, and now it's a bit of a joke, like the staff might say to me, "Hey Ash, it's my 7-year anniversary today." And then my response to that is, "Cool. Do you want me to buy you a coffee?" Or like, "What do you want? Do you want to come back to work tomorrow?" Like, I don't, and I it might come across as mean, and I'm, like I said, I'm not a mean person, but I practice, and I've learned a style, someone told me, was structured management, random leadership. And I feel like that's very relevant to me. So when I had said to someone, I feel like I'm just lucky. I don't feel like I'm a fantastic manager. And they said, and I told them about my style, and they said, no, that's actually a style in itself. And I think because I don't do expected things all the time, but I do random things, those random things are so much more appreciated by my team. So the coffee mornings, or buying coffees in the morning, or random lunches, or we might just shut the doors and go out to a nice restaurant for lunch because we feel like steak for lunch, we feel like steak today, or something like that. That type of thing is appreciated. Or the day where we had a crappy tenant vacate a property and we said, let's go over and buy some champagne and have champagne for lunch on a Tuesday. That type of things is we do. And that, I think, because we treat each other as friends, as including me, I'm a friend as well, and definitely on the same level as them all, that's how we look after each other. And I do not have to worry about someone being sick. If someone's sick, generally they've sorted it out themselves. They've already called up one of the other team members, or in our messenger chat, they will say, not feeling well, I've got these inspections on. Someone sorts it out for them. It's not ever a situation where they come to me as the manager and say, Ash, I'm sick, solve it. They've already solved it, and they've come to me and said, Ash, the kids are sick, but Amy's going to do these inspections for me and Emily's going to do those viewings. They sort it out between themselves because they look after each other. And that's probably one of the best things that makes it a lot easier for me. But it also makes my life, they know that if they can make my life easier, then it allows me to go out and do better things in the industry as well. So it's a great big revolving cycle, and they see me work hard. So there's nothing that I wouldn't do that I don't expect them to do. If I need to go and sit out on reception and look after the front, I do that when I'm in the office. It's very surrounded around that family environment, helping each other when they need it. And that it is a very, very supportive position. But I'm just trying to think and put it into words how I've created that. And I probably would say one of my biggest things is that we've always had an open plan office. So it's a very open door policy. I've always been conscious to be approachable. Even though I have got, 100 emails sitting in my inbox, if someone needs me, I don't sit there typing and listening with one ear open. I stop typing and I take a big breath and I listen to the concern and help them. Or, Ash, can you come over and help me on this? I'll go over and help them. My workload is not their problem, and I make sure that doesn't impact them as well. When they need me, I don't want them to not bother me because I'm the boss and Ash is busy, and and definitely that closed office environment. I think a lot of people have bosses or managers sit in a separate office and shut the door. That happens a lot. So I think a combination of all those little things probably makes for a really good work environment, and also very transparent and very honest. And I mean, I could speak for hours on this, but like, even if someone is having a bit of an off week, they will say, Ash, I'm booking in a sickie on Friday because I'm mentally drained. And I'll be like, sure, no problems at all. I'd rather that behavior and that transparency. Absolutely.
Wow. And I don't think I've ever heard of a workplace where an employee can tell their employer that they are planning on throwing a sickie on Friday, and for the employer to be okay with that. But I really see why you're okay with that, because of the impact it has on your team and your culture and ultimately your business.
But it's funny because I sort of feel like, isn't that normal? Isn't that what everyone does? I don't
assure you it is not.
Yeah, see, I find that really just bizarre. That's I don't know. I mean, it's like, don't stress the small stuff. My gosh, if they need a day off, and they worked hard. Or I've got one staff member that likes to go to a pub on a Friday afternoon, but if I need her on a Saturday, she's there. But why not allow for those little things here and there? I mean, is it really going to end the world if they do? And I'd rather a planned sickie than a last minute sickie, and you not lie about it, but you make up a reason, and then everyone has to scurry. Plan it.
That's true. That's true. And so, speaking of other unorthodox and unusual things that you do in your business, you don't believe in team meetings either.
No.
Tell us about that.
I hate team meetings. I hate one-on-ones. I hate KPIs. And actually, I'll tell you a story to give you an idea of my staff attitude. One of them said to me once, when I did have KPIs, because I thought, well, that's what you're meant to do in a business. You're meant to have KPIs. That's what people do. And she said to me, she goes, I am offended that you would think that I would work harder for meeting KPIs than just doing my job. Like, though that's my job to look after arrears and vacancy, and you think that I'm only going to do that properly if you reward me with a bonus. They were her words.
Wow. Gosh, that hits you in the heart or in the gut, doesn't it?
So it's sort of, so I was like, okay, cool, I'll cancel if you want me to cancel your KPIs. It doesn't really matter. But I find them time consuming. I find the time not in line with what you're getting out of it. Like, it sort of doesn't, it's, gosh, I need a proper coffee this morning, so my brain's not working 100%. It's the time taken. The result for me is there's no match to performance. So I find that if they need me, because I'm always approachable, we can pull aside at any time and have a quick chat about something, which we can do. We use the opportunity of doing generally it's either our Soup Kitchen Monday or our Uber Eats lunch on Friday, which we do. That's our time where we sit around, and I actually would say that's more like a staff meeting. We sit around and talk about what are we doing on the weekend, what problems have we had, what tenant have we had to deal with, or owner have we had to deal with this week. The conversation just naturally evolves into that talk. And that's a really good opportunity to talk about office matters. But because we are an open office, if we've got something going on, we'll just quickly do a stand-up huddle and go, okay, how are we going to sort this out? Okay, Thursday morning, block out 2 hours. We're going to go help Casey sort out this property where the tenant's left, in a hurry, or whatever it may be. So I find that, just really, like, why are you doing a staff meeting? Are you doing a staff meeting because textbook says that you should, or are you doing it because there's a direct, what's that word? I can't.
Benefit or return?
Yes, thank you. A direct benefit to performance or retention. But I'm here to say that I don't think I've ever done a one-on-one or a formal staff meeting, and I still have long-term staff and good loyalty. And it hasn't made any difference to me.
Wow. So one of the things that you have mentioned to me in the past is that you're always mindful that someone at some stage might eventually resign, even though your staff retention is significantly higher than the industry average. But you're always keeping in mind that someone might eventually resign, that you might eventually need to replace someone. What do you do to prepare for that then?
Yeah, so I always am one step ahead. I'm one step ahead in life. I mean, that's why I started the business when I was 23, because I was like, well, if I want to have children in 4 years' time, I need to have a business to have passive income so I don't have to rely on anyone to have the baby. So, like, always that one step ahead mentality. I always have tried to be either half a person or one person overstaffed. That's probably been a big one. I've always had a 6 to 12 month strategic plan. So for me, I know that using right now, because I did it the other day, I know that I've got enough staffing to allow for another probably 170 doors or 170 properties in the business using existing labour. And when I get to probably 100 new managements, then that would be my time to go, okay, I'm going to start looking for someone else to step in to take over the next level of growth. So I always have that next step ready. I have got a trainee that's currently started with us a few months ago, so she probably won't be ready for 12 months. So I'm hoping that with my strategic plan that will line up with her. I have, like one of the girls who's with me at the moment, who is has got her own business, and she's finishing up because she sort of nearly hit her 50 properties that she wanted before going full time. I've always had that flexibility. So I've got her. She's like my bonus person at the moment. I just always try to, just whether it's staffing or just a plan, whether it's a VA or whatever it is. And it's just always worked. I mean, people are never going to stay with you forever. I think you once you have that mindset shift that your staff, they're only on borrowed time. I mean, they can go whenever they want. You don't actually want them to be with you forever, to be honest. Like, they can get a little bit stale as well. It's normal. It's normal for them to leave. So don't be unhappy when they do leave, because that's just normal. I just don't stress about that. But definitely being half a person or one person overstaffed at all time is quite an important strategy, I feel.
Yeah, I think I hear business owners talk quite often about the fact that they are overstaffed, and they always say it in a negative way, that they're a little bit disappointed that they're a bit overstaffed and they probably need to cut back a little bit. But perhaps if they adopted your philosophy, it would make it so much easier to grow and always just be ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you think about it, even for me, what have I got? 8 active staff in property management. By the time 8 people take annual leave plus sick leave, that adds up to about 12 months worth of labour. So why wouldn't you be, for every probably 8 staff, you sort of have to be one person over to allow for leave? Because otherwise what happens is people take leave and no one's covering that role. And then when they come back, they have to just, do 80 hours a week to catch up on their holiday break. But if you can relieve a little bit of that pressure by at least getting the urgent stuff done, or, keeping their inspections and viewings happening, then you sort of need to be one person over staff, I believe, for anything over 6 in the team.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, I had never even considered running those numbers to look at the fact that you probably need an extra person to help with that. So if our listeners were thinking about hiring someone into their property management department, which is certainly seeming to be really challenging at the moment, what advice would you give to attract good staff?
So it's hard. I'm probably not a great person to ask, because people approach me for a job more than I approach them. So my trainee had approached 3 offices that she had researched and looked into, and I was the only one that actually got back to her. But she was very specific in her research, so she approached me for a job, and I was like, oh, that's good timing. So saved me looking. The other one was very much she came to me because she could see that we had online a good staff culture. So I guess one tip could possibly be making sure that your socials reflects your office. So people like my staff that I have brought on because of growth, they have already known that we've had a good culture because they could see it. So that's probably does help a little bit. And I feel like with the interview process, I'm very much always just about getting to know somebody. And I've probably just naturally got a good gut instinct. And I think property managers or people in property management generally do have a good gut instinct, because they have to have a good, good judge of character for tenants and owners and things like that coming into the business. So naturally they've got it. I would probably question the people that are actually doing the hiring in the office as well, because if you are, stereotypically a sales director, maybe you're doing interviewing, I'd probably question whether you're actually the right person to interview someone coming into your property management team. And there's so many different ways that you could do it. You could have group lunches. You could, so invite someone to a drinks or a lunch. But I mean, you're never going to get it right every time. I've had a couple of times I've got it wrong, and that's what happens in business. Not perfect 100% of the time, but I'm just trying to think of, there's probably not any direct tips, to be honest, Ellen. It's definitely following your gut with it. I think there's some really great, there is one thing, I know that Julie Davis does this, where she working out what's the missing gap in your team. So for example, if I'm hiring for me, I'll use my trainee as an example because she's a good example. I'm very relationship based, and on she doesn't do a personality type on her thing that she does to work out where you need help in your business. I am not process driven. I'm relationship based at the forefront. There is absolutely no point bringing someone else in the business that is my style, because that's not fitting in my gaps. But my trainee is process driven and meticulous when it comes to that. But she is absolutely frightened of clients directly and speaking to. So she is the perfect match for me. So probably doing some sort of test, like dynamic test in your office to see where is everyone, and then getting a new interviewee to also do that test to see whether psychologically they're going to fit in and they're going to fill in those missing gaps, because otherwise you probably will clash heads if you get people that are too similar. So that would probably be a big thing to do. I feel that would be really important. And then I would also say as well, even as a team, letting everyone have their little positions in their office. Like I've got one that really loves, checklists and procedures, and that's her little baby. I've got one person loves social media, so she does a bit of social media, and that's her little thing. And everyone's got a little responsibility to make the office work as a team. And I think that's always nice to have and gives people a sense of responsibility and ownership of pitching in.
I love it all, Ash. Now I'm mindful of the time I have with you. I have a couple more questions, if that's okay.
Go for it.
I want to ask you about, what if our listeners have a team of property managers and they're experiencing maybe high staff turnover? Like, what are some things they could try and keep the ones that they've still got in their business?
Yeah, I think that would actually be the agent dynamics type of test would be quite good, because I think what we find in the industry is that people fall into the wrong positions. And property management is so diverse in that you've got your relationship BDM side, you've got your introvert side doing, paperwork. You've got something in between with routine inspections. You've got the person who actually likes a bit of everything and wants to look after the whole lot. And so making sure the right people are in the right seats, because what could happen hypothetically in my situation, I have got a trainee who is somewhat of an introvert, doesn't like the relationship building side of things. So if I have a staff member that leaves, and I'm like everyone else who would just go, staff members leave, who left, who can I put in that position? Trainees next in line, and I stick them in. They're only going to last for 6 or so months before they find that very stressful, because that's not really the best position for her. But I've put her in there because I'm desperate. I've got no one else. I can't hire. Like, what else am I meant to do? And I would say that someone who does have a high turnover, really finding out and making sure they're all in their best positions, because you could actually probably make a whole team a whole lot happier if they were all doing things they love. Maybe in that team there is someone who loves the BDM side of things and someone else who loves doing the property condition reports, and someone loves sitting and tapping away and doing forms and paperwork. So you could make everyone quite a lot more happier by them just doing exactly what they want to be doing and not all the crap they don't. So that would probably be the first thing I would actually do and check. And then the second thing comes from a culture point of view. And I read this somewhere and I can't remember where, but making sure that the leaders in the business are leading the right way. So quite often, on a hierarchy, you've got property managers, and then above that, you've got department managers and operations and GMs, and then above that, you've got business owner. When really, in fact, you need to change that around. The property management team needs to be above, and the GM and the operations manager and the team leaders actually need to be underneath that, because they're acting in a very servant role. So I'm not dictating to my staff what they need to do. My staff are coming to me and saying, Ash, I need this to be able to do my job better. And then I am delivering that as a servant. Like, what do you need to do your job and stay with me forever? And I produce and I give you what you need and, to make your life easier. It's a servant role and it's not a hierarchy role. So I feel like that mindset shift could make a big difference by going and understanding exactly what each individual person needs to do their job. So you've got some that need to come into the office and some that stay at home. I personally believe everyone should work in the office, so I'm a bit stubborn like that, and staying at home or having a work from home day is a privilege, and it's a bonus. It's not the other way around. So that's just my personal thoughts on that. But if I've got a staff member that wants to go out on a Tinder date on a Wednesday, which I've mentioned to you before, then they go out and they do that because that's how they're going to best perform for the rest of the week, and they will catch up their hours as they need to. But that's important to that person. Then another person, who needs to go to the pub at 4 o'clock on a Friday, we'll make arrangements for that to happen. The other person who's got a sick friend in hospital, she will be available at any time that friend needs her to go to the hospital, because she will sort that time out otherwise. All my staff get exactly what they need, but they all don't need the same thing. So how do you know that unless you are lying underneath as the servant, finding this out and delivering them the flexibility, or delivering them the nice office environment that has a lolly jar filled up for them to eat when they're feeling stressed? You know what I mean? How do you know that if you're not acting in that servant position?
That's right. And you've mentioned Julie Davis's profiling system a couple of times in this podcast. I will make sure for our listeners at home I'll make sure to link to where they can discover that on Julie's website, because that is a really powerful profiling system. And I know that a lot of our listeners will be really interested in that. I think you mentioned this servant leadership, which certainly I heard it first from Simon Sinek, although he's probably not the first to say it. And that's quite different to what so many of us have been raised with as well. So this idea that you're there to support your team rather than just dictate to your team.
And even Bill, who is my business partner in sales, and our other sales rep, and they're, two men over 50. If my staff go to Bill, listen, something urgent's come up and I've got to get home to go pick the grandkids up, but I've got 2 viewings, they would just tell Bill, and Bill would go out and do it as well. Or if someone has locked their keys out on the weekend and Bill lives closer, they'll call Bill and say, Bill, can you go do this for me? He also is available as need be. It's not that question. Like, I'm just wondering how many people out there would dare call their boss, who's a sales rep, and say, hey, can you go let this tenant into a property? They just wouldn't do it. But Bill would think that it's normal as well. Like, he wouldn't know that. Don't other people do that? I remember calling him one day. I had a call from a tenant and he couldn't get hold of the property manager, and it was an elderly guy. And he goes to me, Ash, I've got a really awkward situation. I need a mail. I've fallen on the ground and I need some help. And so straight away I just call up Bill. I say, Bill, you know, he's on the ground. He needs some help. Can you run around there and go sort it out for him? It's never a matter of that's not my responsibility or my job. It's like we're humans and we're friends and we help each other out. And he's helping me out and he's helping the property manager out because he's the closest one and he's the male. And he went around there and the poor tenant was naked on the floor and very, very heavy. And he had to call an ambulance to come get him. But it was good that he was there to do it. But, you know, be a human and a friend first. And, you know, but when, you know, we need to be a boss, we'll be a boss. And if I have a complaint, I'll say, okay, time to bring it in a little bit. You know, you haven't returned this call quick enough. But it's respectful because we don't micromanage and do that all the time, but we just pull them into line a little bit when needed, which is very rare, and always, you know, friends and helping and humans first.
Oh, I love that. So Ash, before we wrap up and before I ask you to tell us where people can find you on the internet, do you have any final words of wisdom for our listeners who are mostly rent roll owners and property management leadership positions? Like, what's your final tip for them?
I think it's fine to read books and get tips from books on, you know, how to manage teams and all of that. But I would say to lead from your heart more than your head and just do whatever feels right and be kind and don't do something because society says or because that's what you think everyone does. It's like that whole work from home. Society says we should all have flexible workplace. I don't personally agree with it. I think it comes with problems as a business owner, and I'm not afraid to say it. But I'm not afraid just to go against the status quo as well with it. So because in my heart, I feel this is best for my team, and that's what I'm going to do, and I'm happy to stay strong. So I just feel like people need to go more from the heart, less from the textbook they're reading, which they think is the right thing to do, and also to be open and vulnerable enough to recognize when you're the problem. So, you know, if I know when I'm the problem. I mean, my staff tell me when I'm the problem and tell me to sort it out, you know, say it's sorted out. And I'm open to that. I'm happy if I'm not performing very well, like I'm not performing very well from a new management handover, they will say, Ash, this isn't working. Let's work out how we can do it better. And I'm open to that from my staff on how I can do it to make it easier for them. So being vulnerable to you being improved as well, and not just your staff, because I think a lot of business owners and leaders need to self-reflect also and not put blame just on their office or on their staff member. So they would be my big things that I think are really important.
Oh, and they're wise words, very wise words, and the perfect way to end today's podcast. Now, I know people are going to want to follow you on social media, so we'll make sure to link all of your social handles, and you are quite active on social media and you have quite a few accounts, but I'll link them all in the podcast notes. But where's the best place for people to follow you?
I'm a LinkedIn fan, Ellen, so LinkedIn's always my favourite platform for people to connect with me. So that's Ashleigh Goodchild or at Perth Property Manager, and that's the easiest way to get hold of me. And I'm always open to people that want to catch up or Zoom or just want to run something past me. I'm very open for anyone to reach out if they need. And I can't always have all the answers, but I'm definitely connected with lots of people that I think can help, whether it comes to people like Julie Davis or you know, other trainers and coaches, if I think there's someone that they would actually be able to work really well or who I believe can help them as well. So do reach out if you need anything.
Oh, thank you so much, Ash. I expect you will get people reaching out after this, and I know that you are super willing to share your knowledge, and I know that your priority is collaboration over competition. So I know that everyone who connects with you as a result of this podcast will be so fortunate to get to follow along with what you're doing, and probably have some conversations with you as well.
Lovely. Thanks for having me, Ellen. It's been lovely to chat, and I always learn a little bit more about myself as well when I get the opportunity to self-reflect on what I'm doing. So I appreciate you having me on here today.
Oh, thank you so much for your time, Ash. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Ashleigh Goodchild today. Please make sure that you go over and follow her on social media. Remember, she's all about LinkedIn. And if you're in property management and you want to be using LinkedIn some more, you should definitely check her out on LinkedIn. But I'll also link in the show notes where you can find her on Instagram as well. And I'll also include the link to go and check out Julie Davis's profiling system. So if you're looking to get a better understanding of you and your team, you'll be able to discover that at Julie Davis's website as well. Stay tuned for our next episode of the Rent Roll Starter podcast.